Cannabis Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
The opinions expressed during this show are those of the individual participants and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of their associated organizations or Lifestyle Radio.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Cannabis and Coffee with me, Tamarijuana. It's a gray, cloudy day in the East Kootenays. We've had some snow, and of course, many of you know also I'm a stakeholder for the Ministry of Transport out here, so of course it's been a battle with the contractors. So that's been my week kind of wrapped up dealing with highways and also dealing with a couple patients up in Stony Plain, Alberta. Now, they're not willing to come forward quite yet to legal actions and stuff, or they have a lawyer actually in place. Once they have a lawyer in place, they're going to do my show probably within the next 2 weeks. Now, these poor people have been left in Health Canada's grasp. They sent their application in April, and they still hadn't got it, but the plants were in the ground. And the RCMP came in. They've taken everything, including their children. So precedent-setting case is starting here because of the fact that CPS is involved, wanting all kinds of different air testings and asbestos testings and air quality to show that the house is safe for the children. So we'll get back, that again goes into the legalization aspect and why we're fighting with the government still and going to have to maintain fighting with the government still for rights. This morning I have Richard Kudra on my show. Richard's been compiling some information over the last few years about impaired driving and how cannabis affects our driving ability. And he's also a patient out of Vancouver. So good morning, Richard, and welcome to my show.
Hello, Tamara and everybody. How are you all this morning?
Well, I hope we're doing as well as everybody else. So you've been working behind the scenes type of thing, looking at how this new legislation is going to affect our driving abilities.
Yeah, the bill C-46. I didn't really get affected. I don't believe up to date there by C-45. But now the bill C-46. This one is looking specifically at us cannabis people, and it's trying to take away our section fixed mobility rights. So ever since 2012, I've been working specifically on this one. And when I started, there was nothing specifically for cannabis in BC. And that kind of bothered me. But then I thought, well, that's just because they don't know me. So I got to get, I had to get them to the point where they got to know me. And I went in and I've done medical road tests before where I've had to tell them what was wrong with me, break my privacy to tell them what was wrong with me because I felt that, number one, I cannot do the walk, turn, touch your nose and stuff like that because I'm in a wheelchair half the time, and if you see me out and about, odds are I'm nicely titrated because in order to drive safely, I have to have a little bit of that high in me, just to take the edge off, the pain away. So, anyways, I went in and I did a test, and because I had been ordered to do a test before. It gave me 45 days to call the Superintendent of Motor Vehicles, British Columbia, and they gave me the letter after a doctor told them, hey, he's got a hip condition, you better check him. So they sent me a letter, said, you got 45 days to book an appointment with this place that you'll probably never get through, because I mean, anybody tries to call anything, you know what calling a government agency is. So I was kind of at odds with the whole thing. Then I had to do one for morphine, because the head of the BC college here, she gave me morphine, and this was back in like '96 or something like this, and I was I was trying to get them to give me cannabis, but they didn't have anything really open, and I didn't know anything about Section 53 or whatever it is they had back then. So I was just trying them. You know what I mean? We were all trying back then, eh? But I was trying to go through all those pills that they said that we had to take and so whatnot. They gave me the morphine. She ordered another test, another $75 out the window. So they've been doing this to me like 6 times. They've done it to me. So I thought, well, I had a renewal come up. And here in BC, they make you fill out a renewal form. Well, the first question that they ask is, paraphrased, is there something wrong with you that might affect your driving? And I said, yeah, well, my right hip osteo. And then it said, what medications do you take? Paraphrased. And I said, cannabis trichome therapy. Because the Smith trial was going on, and I got inspired by it. So I wrote it down, and gee whiz, and I figured, well, we'll see how long it takes them to react, right? So, heck, less than 2 weeks, they're calling me, because I didn't know, but when I signed that form and gave it back to them, they had 45 days with which to book an appointment for me. So she phoned back with the appointment. So it's like, oh, right on. So I found out a few things when I was talking to her, because I was wondering how they work this, eh? And I says to her, I says, am I going to have to do this test again? And she says, no, it goes on your permanent driving record. I says, oh, okay. Does the testor, does she know that I'm being tested for cannabis? Because I'm thinking medical discrimination here right away, right? And the lady says, no, she has no idea. They just know it's a medical thing. They don't even know what medical thing it is. So I thought, oh, okay. So I go do the test, and, we talked about health and stuff like that. And I told her, yeah, it's my hip, and that's why I want to use 2 feet. I want to use one for the gas, one for the brake. And she says, oh, well, that's a good compensation that you've made. You've managed to, to change your form, to change how you're doing it, and it looks safe to me. Carry on, son. So then I thought, wow, this is really good. It is really good. So when I talked to my doctor the next time, I says to him, I says, so I got my cannabis driver's road test there done, eh? And he says, oh? And I says, well, yeah. And so I figured it out right then. They didn't even call him to confirm that I had my license or anything. That's how, I just saw this gaping hole in their whole system. Because, like, when we get our licenses to apply, to possess and to grow and whatnot, it's like the first part of the marriage. Well, after we get through the honeymoon phase, then we realize, oh my God, we got to live with each other, cannabis here, on a day-to-day basis. So then the second part of my marriage to this plant has been my driver's license. Now, the neatest thing about the driver's license is it's what they call the gold standard of the test. To see if we're sober, to see if we're, able to operate things and to think cognitively. Well, lo and behold, this is also required for if you were, say, a medical patient and you were working for the government and you wanted to be covered for your daily activities, interactions, and stuff like this, well, then you just go in and get the test. and it is the gold standard. And it is going to eventually, it'll speak to medical cannabis patients going to the States, because in the books and stuff like this that they've given out there, they've said that we have this reciprocating agreement between states. In other words, my test that I did out here is, it's good for Quebec and Ontario also. It goes from one end of the country to the other. It's actually the Canadian CMAT, Motor Transport Association. I have that book here, but I really hope that everybody gets around to reading that, because these are the kinds of things that are actually going to save us when it comes to, getting pulled over at the side of the highway and stuff like this, is that they're going to see right away that we've done this. There we go. It's, I've got the Road Safe BC one, but it's 2016 Canadian Council of Motor Transportation Administrators, Medical Standards for Drivers with BC specific guidelines. And once you finally do get a hold of that, go to section 15.6.1 there. I think it's on, let's see, page 241 or something like this. There we go, 241. Anyways, it says 15.6.1, medication prescribed all drivers. This standard applies to prescribed drugs and prescribed medical marijuana. Now, I'll just rush to the bottom here for you. And it says that the rationale for their rule that they have here is the use of a psychotropic drug does not mean that a driver is ineligible for a license. Where there is some evidence of a persistent cognitive impairment associated with the stable use of a drug, an individual assessment of the effect of the drug is required to determine license eligibility. What it means is that if I get an increase, because everybody says, oh, you should get an increase. Well, if I get an increase, because I've got the increase, now I'm going to have to go in and do the test again, because it says that, let's see, individual assessment. So every time we increase it, then we have to go in for an individual assessment. But then I've been looking into it a little bit further, and it's like, yeah, I suppose we could do that. But then I think before I would do that, I would, let's see, BC driving, here we go. I would take some ceticoline, or at least tell them that I took some ceticoline. And what that does, that's Corey Elan's counter THC pill. Now, I've been using the pepper, because pepper brings me down. It takes the high away for me. I don't know how it works for everybody else, but it seems to work for me. But Corey Elan suggested to try that. So if anybody can get some CITICOLINE, ceticoline, and it, from what I've read about it, it looks like it might be the answer. They were talking about how many nanograms we would have in our system, and they were worried about that. And I was thinking, well, going by the tests that I've read that they've done and whatnot there, they were testing at like 5 nanograms or something like that. And I was thinking, gee whiz, I don't think since I've been 16 years old, I don't think I've ever been less than 20. Right. That's what I wake up after,
Right. Right, because cannabis stays in our system for so long, right? Well,
oh my God.
Because I mean, a lot of us are in the position where we're afraid. right? Like, we don't want to tell the motor vehicle branch that that we're cannabis users, because we're afraid they're going to pull our licensing from us. And that's, I think, a big fear with a lot of people that use cannabis as medicine is, do we say anything? Do we go down to the motor vehicles and ask them for this test? And then what if we take the test and we fail? So this is great information, because there are people, I know another patient out in Ontario that followed the same type of steps. She went and she was tested by a motor vehicle inspector to do a driving test when she had used her medication prior to going out, and passed the test with no problems. There was no impairment shown while she was driving. And did you receive a letter from them, or is there something on the driver's license that shows anywhere that you're a medically licensed user, or how did you go about getting all that?
Oh, okay. So that was this is the next stage for me, is I want to get a driver's abstract. And I want to see, because it says, I just found out that, yes, it will show all the medical tests that I've done. But now, being an indigent person, I have to plan this properly so that when I do get that, it doesn't break me for food and stuff like that. Because, as you all know, living on a limited income, we really have to time these things. And like you say, people living on a limited income, a limited ability lifestyle, mobility is the last thing that we want to screw with. I've done a couple of postings on Facebook that, to give people the idea. I welcome people to talk to me first, because I have a whole bunch of other things that that a person can find out too before they actually do the test. Because the actual roadside sobriety test, I had that performed on me by an occupational therapist when the provincial and the federal government bought me a side-by-side. You see, part of it is... the reason why they bought me a side-by-side is because I applied to the equipment and assistive technologies people to start a business. So then I had to come up with a proposal to get this $30,000 machine. So after they okayed me to get the machine, then I showed them my license. After I got the okay, then I showed them.
Right.
Now, maybe that was, right. You know what I'm saying? Because I acknowledge all of the stigmatisms and all of the discriminations that we are having to live now.
I know, and that's, I think, and that's the biggest thing for a lot of patients is the stigma that goes along with the cannabis license. Like, it's not, you don't, and a lot of people don't, tell you, okay, let's say you've got, I don't know, you live with chronic pain, you work every day, you're, taking, half a bottle of Advil just to get yourself moving for the day. You're not going to work and telling people, I live with chronic pain, I'm sucking back, a half a bottle of Advil every day, or you're taking Oxycontin. It's not something that, generally the mainstream talk about their health, and I think that's something where we're lacking. And that we don't talk about our health because we're ashamed to be sick. Because, when you're working in the workforce, your bosses pretty much shame you. God help you if you got a sick kid or a cold, you're going to lose your job. There's so many barriers and different situations that put everybody, whether they use cannabis or whether they're dealing with, migraines or other things and not willing to step over that line to cannabis. Cannabis could be so mainstream if people would just start talking about the fact that they're sucking back a half bottle of Advil or a half bottle of Tylenol, or they're going home and they're drinking a half a bottle of vodka at night so they can sleep. I don't think we speak enough about how we're coping with our own health. And I think that's something that, like I said, the mainstream, our employers have done to us, that because we have to get up, we have to go out that door, and we have to work for money. And if you're on disability, it's a totally different situation. You still have to get up and deal with life in general. So people that deal with chronic pain, because my husband's one of them. Alvin works in the oil patch. He goes out, he's got a buggered knee. He's licensed for medical cannabis. He tells nobody because in the zero tolerance world up there, yet he refuses to take any Tylenol, any Advil, or anything. So he suffers daily with chronic pain and doesn't do anything. And with that, we're going to just take we're going to start taking a quick break here. And we'll come back and talk more about the workforce and how it really, inhibits a lot of people to, cross that line to cannabis. So I'd like to thank the sponsors, who are 12 High Techs Magazine, the Maritimers United for Medical Marijuana, Canadian Therapeutic Cannabis Partners, the Haley Rose Foundation, and our song's going to be 420 Local by Bobby Fricks. We'll be right back.
Following is a public service announcement from the Canadian Therapeutic Cannabis Partners Society. The Canadian Therapeutic Cannabis Partners Society is a non-profit organization dedicated to ensuring improved access to therapeutic cannabis and cannabis byproducts in Canada. With a federal government that has committed to legalizing cannabis, we feel it is our duty to ensure that the medicinal use of cannabis doesn't get lost in the process and that there are clear distinctions made between the medicinal and recreational use of cannabis. It is our mission to ensure that government regulation doesn't get in the way of a sick, disabled, or terminally ill person's right to use or produce this amazing natural health product. If you would like to get involved, you can contact us on the internet. www.canadiantherapeuticCannabisPartners.com, on Facebook, CTCP Society, or search Canadian Therapeutic Cannabis Partners.
So what are you doing? Nothing. Nothing? Why not? Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website. Sounds like a cool website. Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it. You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
Oh, that's so funny.
We're back. We're talking to Richard over the break a little bit about, we were saying how we smell. Like the fact that you can not smoke a joint for a week, but because we've been smoking chronically for so long that, you can not smoke in your vehicle, you can not have a bag in your vehicle, that cop's going to walk up to your window and go, Miss Cartwright, you smell like a joint. You know what I mean? We were talking about the fact too that I don't smoke before I go pick Taven up from school, and it's not because I'm worried about being impaired to go pick him up or not being my ability to drive. It's the fact that I don't want to smell like a joint when I walk into the school, or I don't, and I know like most of the parents and the teachers, the staff at the school know that I'm medically licensed for cannabis, and nobody really bats an eye at it. They don't think anything of it, quite frankly. I've been lucky when I moved here, but I'll tell you, like I've been lucky, but I know every cop in town probably knows that I'm licensed for medical pot, and that'd be the first thing they'd look at me and go, Tamara, you're stoned. And they wouldn't know, because if you look at me, I don't show, I mean, I've got no red eyes. I don't have slant eyes. I don't appear to be stoned ever, and I don't feel stoned ever. Like, it's not like I said, as a medical patient, I guess many of you will understand this. You don't get that high anymore. You just get, that feeling of, oh my God, my back doesn't hurt right now. And okay, well, I can actually go eat something. And it's not really high per se, like a giggly, your first kind of thing, right? So, I mean, the chronic, and I hate to use that word chronic, but in reality, we're using daily because we have to. It'd be no different than somebody getting up and taking their medication laid out on their nightstand for them. You know what I mean? And there's lots of people that have their little pill boxes sitting beside their nightstand, and they have to pop whatever before they go to bed, and they have to pop whatever when they get out of bed. And it's no different for us. And I think the mainstream needs to understand that as you're popping your pills, as you're getting out of bed in the morning, okay, we might be, doing a dab or eating a cookie or, eating a candy or whatever the case may be. We're still taking care of our health, no matter how you slice it. And I think that's one thing, like we were talking about, stigma. And the stigma that we all have, and the discrimination that we all feel, and never mind that if you're disabled, you're already discriminated by the government anyways. They put you on a limited income, they shove you in a corner, and they don't give a fuck. And that's, I think, the biggest thing that bothers me the most about disability, is that they just, here's a check, you don't care, we don't care about whether you're feeling better. Oh, we're taking care of your pills for you, so we don't care about whether you want to get onto natural health benefits, because we'll kill you with the pharmaceuticals and you won't be on our system as long. And that's the mentality, I think, of a lot of these of these physicians is, this one's not. And you find that with a lot of doctors, they see the limit of where you are at with your health and what they can do for you pharmaceutically, what they can do for you. And the minute you say to them, I don't want to take your pills, you're no longer on their radar of trying to get you better. You are now on the back burner. Oh God, here comes that pothead again, needing me to sign their paperwork. And that's kind of how I feel sometimes. So back to the driving, too, like you said, roadside. So we were going to go back to the fact that you wanted to talk about what's your first initial step to do when you get pulled over?
The first thing that I do, my window is it's already opened. He's not going to come up to an unopened window. I'm a smiling, happy person normally, and that's who will be opposite him in court if he wants to push it that far. But then he's looking with his nose at this time, and he's going to look at my eyes, he's going to listen to my speech, but his nose, that's the real look that he's doing. And I don't know if you guys ever heard of Marseille oil, thieves oil, and it's it's a proprietary blend of a whole bunch of different things. And I drive around with a bottle in each car I got. I have a couple of vehicles, and I have a bottle in front of me, my brand new bottle. It hasn't even had to go out in my vehicle. Now, I just put that shit on everything. And when they come to that car, they cannot smell nothing. Because when I did my driver's test, I had to do it in my vehicle. Well, gee whiz, my vehicle smells like my Mac jacket, But with the thieves oil, I sprinkle that crap on everything, and that's all they smell, I figure, until they become attuned to the smell of me. But the nice thing about this stuff here is that if you put it in your mouth, it makes your breath that way, a couple of drops. And then if you put it on your fingers, there goes the smell of the ropes. One of my biggest things is to try to get the province to pay for this medication. And I have been working on that for a while now. I have an advocate because, unlike what I've been hearing, I don't get a lawyer, folks. I don't get a lawyer. If I need a lawyer, all he is speaking for me, and the lawyers that I've spoken to have all admitted that nobody will know your case better than you. All it is just a matter of having a conversation with a judge, not letting him know everything. But getting right back to our stopped at the side of the road, I'm gonna have my license out. I'm gonna have my registration handy. We won't really have to do much talking other than, "Good evening, officer. How is your evening going?" That's an important thing that they hear from us as a community, is that, "Oh, good, I get to deal with a cannabis person." So much more pleasant than those other ones. Because when I was a young lad, I asked a Saanich bull, I said, "So who's worse on the road, a drinker or a smoker?" And he says, "Well, the drinkers are driving too fast and the smokers are driving too slow. So you just got to decide, who do you want on the road?" And it's, yeah, okay, I understand what he's saying. Knowing that we have to keep up to the traffic, we can't be, going, "Oh, gee whiz, I'm driving perfect here," and everybody's just flowing around you kind of thing. We don't want to hold up the traffic. We want to go along when it comes to traffic. When we want to be ourselves, well, I'm going to be keeping up to traffic in a hippie Volkswagen bus, but at least I'm going to be keeping up, and I'm going to blend in as much as, I'm going to conform as much as I can when it comes to a Section 1. My Section 7, that it protects me. I also have that responsibility to be a credible individual with autonomy. I have to be mindful of Section 1 and do what I can to protect everybody else out there as much as I'd want them to protect me. And so he's come up to the window and he said, "How are you?" And I'm doing very well. "How is your evening?" He's not smelling nothing. I'm looking him in the eyes, and he's going to put that flashlight in my eyes to see if my pupils dilate now. And at this point, he's going to be making up his mind. Usually right there, they're going to go back to the car to find out who you are. If you're not driving in your vehicle, say it's somebody else's registration. Because when in this town, Tamara, you were mentioning, all of your paid employees, they already know that it's you. Well, in this town, they have,
It's
if they haven't, for myself, they've probably seen me hug the main inspector in town here, and shake his hand and stuff like this. If not, they know that I've engaged them on the social media.
I've always said, as a patient, we are scared. And I think once we get the ACMPR, I think it lifts our fear a little bit, that we feel like we're on the same level, like on the same playing field. It's like validation. It's like, okay, look, and I've gone and done everything that you've asked me to do legally to be able to hold this prescription in my hand. You've gone to a doctor, you've sent your paperwork to either Health Canada, the licensed producer, and you've got that piece of paper in your hand. You're thinking, okay, there's nothing more they can do. And then there's that impaired driving, and knowing the fact that you've got that license. So you're in this, safety facade of there's nothing more you can do, and then there's that. And that's something, like I said, I have to get my child back and forth to school every day. If I didn't have a driver's license, I would be lost. I've driven since I was 16 years old. I'm 47 now. I've driven for, 31 years. Taking that away from me would be like cutting off my left arm, like literally. And I think that's where a lot of people are here.
Tamara, now, the reason why I've been trying to bring this up so much, and it's like having a dry turd and chucking that on the wall. That's what it feels like sometimes. But the reason why I want people to deal with it is properly, reasonably. Call me. I'll talk you through it. I'll give you a character reference for it also. But the reason why I want people to start doing this is because I grew up with people who were disabled. I grew up being raised by my elders. Now, mobility, when you get older, is going to be a big thing. And when you look at the licensing protocols that they have for the aged and the elderly, we have some issues then again are going to come up, and they are the exact same issues. What it is they treat us as medical patients with the same discriminatory practices that we are seeing that the aged and the elderly are also facing. Now, I'm an strategic allies person, and I've been trying to build that bridge to help where I can with the elder drivers. A lot of times there are some elder drivers that should not drive. There are some cannabis patients that should not drive. But then you think about ladies like Corey Yellen, who come out with wonderful things like Siddle and Ethan Russo, who's come up with that whole list of antidotes. Because when they say, well, you're dangerous on the road, I always say, yes, but, I do have THC antidotes, which, of course, came in Ethan Russo's The Taming of Cannabis Synergies study that he did. Now, he sent that to me because... But
you guys realize, here's the thing that a lot of people don't realize with the antidotes, just for the general population out there, because it's not a great big secret, the roots of your plant is the antidote to THC. Okay, so all you people grow out there, it's not a big secret. I'm not going to hide this anymore because I'm tired of these people making fucking money off of it, okay? Take your root bulbs out of your dirt, rinse them off, grind them up, and eat it. That is all it takes for an antidote. So all you people out there that are making fucking money off this, I just fucking blew it up in your face. Root bulbs, secret. Fuck that. I'm sick of these people making money off patients that they think it's a great big fucking secret. It's no secret, people. Root to tip, and if you grow your own, it's the bulb and the roots of your plant that is your antidote to THC. There you go. Dry it off, grind it up, and put it in a cap and eat it. There you go.
There you go.
Infuse it with oil. There you go. Because I'm tired. I'm tired of all these, little people out there thinking that they've got big pants on because they can put it in a cap and fucking sell it. Do it yourself. It's cheaper. It's maybe a little more, easy, not so easy. Maybe you don't grow your own. But let me tell you, people, it's not a secret. Okay, go back to what you were saying. Sorry.
It's like everything about what we're going through. There's like you say, our antidote is the other part of the plant that we usually throw away, for God's sakes. But then there's also that new device that the constable on patrol will have, that new swab test, I believe it is.
Right.
Well, hydrogen peroxide. hydrogen peroxide. You know, I was going to actually add some of it to my thieves oil here.
Oh, don't do that.
And no,
don't do that. You'll wreck the thieves. Don't have the peroxide. Well,
yeah, but like I say, you know, I mean, I've got lots of bottles of it. You know, so I was thinking, because it would just be a swish anyways. There's no way you can't drink that stuff, can you?
No. Yeah,
hydrogen peroxide?
Yeah, you can. We're going to take another quick break here, Richard, and we'll come back and talk about that. But yes, you can actually drink hydrogen peroxide in small amounts. Not that you want to make it a daily thing, but you can. So again, I'm going to take a quick break here. We are going to thank my sponsors again, who are 12 High Checks magazine. They're holding the Mum Cup February 23rd, 24th, and 25th in Vancouver. Tickets are available now, and VIP kits are available at www.12highchecks.ca or .com, sorry. My other sponsors are Maritimers United for Medical Marijuana, the Canadian Therapeutic Cannabis Partners Society, and the Haley Rose Foundation. Our song is going to be the Royal Kush Band, Brown Dirt Warrior, and we'll be right back with Richard. Brown Dirt Warrior, and we'll be right back.
Please hang up and try again.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
Sweat on my brow, I'm down on one knee. Another day in the life of a seed, humming my song while I'm planting these trees. Damn, don't you love the smell of weed? Won't find me kicking up my feet in some royal palace. I spend my day trying to pull my weight, live and die by the callous. I got that hard drive, and nine lives, baptized in the highest of highs, rolling these bushes, renders, oils, and hashes. Roll it up quick, I get cinder and ashes. Butts in the front, and nugs in the back. The water's in the jug, and there's lunch in my pack. My motivation's motivating me, cause it's 110 degrees. Roots go down and the sun comes up, then comes the knowledge and experience. Ganja farmer, keep your head down, the harvest isn't here yet. Fix the soil, I pray for the rain. I hope those thieves don't come back again. Gonna show you the ways of brown dirt. Throw up your hands and let me hear ya.
It's that time of year, soil's ready to go. I'm ready to grow. Some plants line them row by row. It's a clean slate, legislative gate. While they pass laws, I'm past vegetative state. So I keep my ears open for the cops flying. Kush poachers might get popped for trying. They need to respect the trade. Shovel full of dirt and I reset the spade. Buds fattened up nice. It's the advanced nutrients. Smelling ripe like the plant is a doobie, but its harvest isn't here yet. So don't crack no beer yet. The trichome's still clear, yes. But this kush gon' be serious. Let us show you the ways of brown dirt. Throw up your hands and let us hear ya.
Roots go down and the sun comes up, then comes the knowledge and experience. Ganja farmer, keep your head down, the harvest isn't here yet. Fix the soil, I pray for the rain. I hope those thieves don't come back again. Gonna show you the ways of brown dirt. Throw up your hands and let me hear ya.
I can take the shit okay, flag and
we're back on air. We're just talking about how many years we've been, all kind of involved in this, and you were saying, what was it, 1964? You started really feeling like you had to be part of something. And that's what we're talking about, the fact that as patients, as medical patients, or even as a cannabis consumer, whether you're licensed for medical pot or not, it's really important to get involved in the community. And we were talking about the fact that, I came to Cranbrook and I started with Keeping Main Roads Accountable, right, which is a group that was fighting for the contractor to have a better highways. Because out here in this area, our highway contractor really wasn't doing a good job. Over the years, now I'm a stakeholder with the Ministry of Transport. So I didn't just come in as the cannabis consumer trying to, bring forth. Well, I didn't do a global marijuana march until this year. So I did 2 years with highways first before I even came out of the said cannabis closet. I mean, I didn't hide it by any stretch, but didn't do anything cannabis related till this year with a global marijuana march. So again, that shows that, we have to be involved with our communities in other areas so they can get to know us as people first. Whether we use cannabis, whether we use Percocets, whether we use oxymorphine, whatever you use, your health is not who you are. And I think a lot of patients have to realize that. I understand that you've got disabilities, and I understand that you struggle and suffer with chronic pain, but that's not who we are. Who we are people. And we really have to start seeing each other as just as people. And our cannabis community does that. I think that's why a lot of us kind of commute to, because all we do is see ourselves as other people that use, and don't stigmatize. And that's the biggest thing, trying to get out in our communities with all the stigma that we all have to suffer with. And it's not easy.
I when I first got to Alberni here, I noticed that, like, this is a mill town, and it's like, holy cow, the only way to get away from that stink there is to go up in the hills, way up into the hinterlands, and get that fresh air. So I started my civil fight up here because I'd been involved in them since about 72 with Dr. Frank Calder. But now up here, this was my very alone thing. I have family here, a cousin. He's the reason why I moved here, but he does not have any civic involvement. So right away, this is going to be my town for civic involvement, just like you did, Tamara. It's really neat. When you were talking about transport ministry, I was thinking, holy cow, I got them on the other end. So the first thing I did is I bitched about the wood smoke and the smoke. It's a mill town, so you got to start somewhere. So I got them, me and a friend of mine, Gary L. We got the city to bring in a wood appliance bylaw. That's not what we were looking for. We were looking for a nuisance smoke bylaw. But then, because I'd love to talk about nuisance smoke, because I know a little something about that argument too, that people are afraid, oh, my neighbor might smell our smoke. Oh, really? Well, tell you what, I'll light my fireplace and you won't smell it anymore, because you don't bitch about it in the wintertime, even though it's killing you, and yet you bitch about a marijuana cigarette. Give me a break. If you want to do that, then the appropriate accommodation is for you to buy me a vaporizer. That's how you fight that one. Yeah. So anyways, my second journey all by myself was to get involved with the parks. You see, in my district of the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District, which includes Tofino, Long Beach and all them beautiful places, well, we've also got all the clear cuts going on and stuff like this. But then I noticed that people in, say, wheelchairs and stuff like that, or, and whatnot, they can't get up into the hills, So that was my next civic involvement, was to, make it so that we had a voice on our parks. And, I joined it and, got the intros and everything else. And being an English Métis of First Nations, I identify as First Nations. I mentioned that I want to see universal access so that everybody can be out here and enjoy this beautiful recreating that we do out here, because recreation is recreation. Now, just a little something that I had to find out, the definition of recreation. What the heck is it? Well, through the Parks Department, and because of all of my reading that I have had to do to be a full member and stakeholder in the parks, speaking to people with limited accessibility and abilities, having universal access, I realized, and I told them, because Harper was happening then, I said, one of the reasons why I'm on here is I want to be able to say that we have less guerrilla grows now because we have home growing. And I just left it hanging out there as a big elephant in the room. I'm really glad that you guys are doing what you're doing here, because nobody would talk about that. Because we all know that we have guerrilla growing going on. And, well, we don't have to now with our abilities to grow with the ACMPR, and it's like the stages of becoming members of society, so that not only do we belong, but they don't even make a move without talking to us first. When one of the crazy dispensary owners went to the city and brought forward, hey, we should have a dispensary, I had my direct democracy councilman say to me, Richard, what's going on here? Do you know anything? And I gave him the CCIC. I gave him my password so that he can just go in right away and stuff like this. And then, of course, the councilman who's an ex-RCMP, rather than him having to go through all that, he got in touch with me. What's going on here, kind of thing. He came over to my house, and we sat here at 12:30 at night, and I went through the whole, the MAR, the ACMPR, the letters that I sent to my cousin, Jody Rayborn Wilson, explaining to him why, and I had Allard out and everything else, and I was pulling up the paragraphs, and it was like, holy cow. He didn't know that we had gotten that far. So what happened is, it was the relationship that we had gotten together through meetings. One of the things that I did to actually directly speak to them was I talked about the roundup and the bumblebees and stuff. Right. I mean, Tamara, a lot of times we get up in front of the public and we feel so passionate about something that we raise our voices. Well, rather than doing that, I think the most effective thing that we can do is just let our eyes tear. Yeah. Just let it come out. Yeah. Because, yes, and carry on. Let them see your emotion. Because if they don't know, then they can't do.
That's right. And it's true, though. Like, making relationships, like I said, with the RCMP, with people in your community, with your city councilors, and all these people that a lot of us fear, and in some aspects, it might not always be our friends, but if you approach them the right way, in a different way, that they do become our friends. I'm finding it a lot easier to work within my city council with just being involved with a civic election, with helping one person try and run, you know what I mean? And being involved with, an MLA that, sees both sides of the fence, and they're approachable. And that's what they're supposed to be. They're civil servants. They're supposed to be here for us to be able to approach them on whatever level that we have to. And I think that's one thing, like, back to the driving, with the RCMP or with your, city police in your areas. Like, I know you don't want to let them know that you're driving and that, that you're using cannabis, but if they see us doing it properly within the legalities of everything that we're supposed to be doing, what are we doing wrong? And then there's no reason for them to keep holding the stigma against people that use cannabis. It's our behavior, right? Actions speak louder than words. And if we're, approaching people in a professional and normal, like not normal. Normal is a cycle on a washing machine. I don't like that word. Just approaching them differently. That maybe we can, bring that stigma down. Like I said, legalization might help us to a point. But then again, is that really what we've been waiting for? Have we all been waiting for this? I know people that have been using cannabis for a lot longer that, our patients are using it for medical. I'm waiting for this for a lot longer than people that are using recreationally right now, right? And recreational, there's people waiting 70 years for this. There's senior citizens that, were dealing with this in the 60s, and I think it's finally our turn to take the stigma off the plant. And that's all I think many of us are asking for, is take the stigma off the plant.
Yes. And the way to do it is to, every time, that they say, oh, you're unsafe, and we say, no, we use our roots. Whether you use the roots or not, just say you use the roots. Bullshit if you have to.
Yeah.
I don't give a damn, just let's change, let's control the narrative. Whenever we see that, some article or whatever that we share, one of the things that I haven't really said it, I've been trying to let my example show it, but I always try to go into the site that it originated, read the darn thing, go to the bottom, and put in a comment. And try to make it like a word of thunder so that they get to know that we're here, we're queer, and we ain't going away. You know what I mean? It's just the way it is. You got to deal with me, and then what they find out is that, wow, they're easy to deal with. I'll listen to them probably better than they'll listen to me.
Right. And like you were saying, you have an advocate, because an advocate will talk for you as well, like a lawyer just, sometimes you just need to speak for yourself, because again, nobody knows your story better than yourself. And that's why I like having patients like yourself and to give different perspective to the patients that are here being educated by this podcast. And that's why we do this podcast, is so that people can listen and get educated on certain things. Like I said, I learned a lot today, Richard, and I really appreciate you coming on the show and talking about the impairedness and how to get around, and that you can get a driving test for medical, and that, there's that hope that you won't lose your medical, like your driver's license, because you're medically licensed for cannabis. And that's something I think we all fear, and I think we all have to be aware of. And that there are choices and options, especially if you live in British Columbia. You can get that, get that test. You can go do a test and then have, that gold seal basically saying that you're good through the whole country for driving.
Yes.
Well, again, I'd like to thank you for coming on, my dear. Is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out to, or any way people can reach you? How? Through Facebook, Richard Kudra, Kudra on Facebook, if you would like some more information about what he's been researching over the last decade. But, on driving and cannabis. And if you want to reach out to him, try on Facebook. Again, I'd like to thank my sponsors, who are 12 High Chicks Magazine, Maritime Regenerative Medical Marijuana, Canadian Therapeutic Cannabis Partners, and the Haley Rose Foundation. I have no idea who I'm going to have on next week, so I guess I'll let you all know when I find somebody. It's always fun. Again, thanks to my producer Al Rapp and Lifestyle Radio for having my podcast on, and to you, the listeners. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have a show. You all have a great week, and we'll talk to you next week at 9 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. Have a good week.
Right on. It was good to rap.
Thank you, Richard. You have a good day.
So what are you doing? Nothing? Why not? Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website. Sounds like a cool website. Yeah, it's alright. Oh, I might have it. You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
The opinions expressed during this show are those of